He's been a proponent of open borders and unlimited immigration, but now the chickens have come to his home to roost. Clooney's $11 million Italian mansion is in a favorite vacation spot of the rich and famous. Barbra Streisand, Elton John, Bruce Springsteen, Brad and Angelina, Madonna, and other A-list liberals have all enjoyed champagne wishes and caviar dreams here. But now the place is overrun with migrants. As one resident said, a small number of immigrants is not a problem, but there's simply too many of them. They're not poor, hungry refugees. They're big and strong. But Clooney's building a fireproof, bomb-proof, attack-resistant panic room. The problem is, Clooney's panic room is at one of his other mansions in the UK, so he may have to be ready to bug out in his own private jet. Such are the problems of the 1%.
Run away with the rich and famous.
For INFOWARS.com, I'm David Knight.
White people, get ready to write checks and give up your car keys. Black Lives Matter organizer Ashley Shackelford wants reparations from all white people for 400 years of slavery, when only 1.4% of whites owned slaves at the height of slavery. Check out this quote from Shackelford.
You. Pay me a check, pay me consistently, provide me safe housing, offer me a job with benefits, run me those Beyonce tickets.
Wait, what? Is that a mooching mentality of an entitled millennial disguising their intentions as social activism? Not very well, I might add. Furthermore, Shackelford sees all whites as oppressors, so why would you ask for a handout from someone you hate? She don't care. She's a queer, non-binary, black, fat femme who gets off on the amount of labels she has. And oh yeah, getting paid for being a fat black bitch. Article by Paul Joseph Watson on INFOWARS.com. This has been Gabriel Golddiamond.
So at this point, we've all heard about the Nice, France terror attack that occurred on July 14th. People were just trying to enjoy their Bastille Day activities, and they ended up being killed by a jihadist who had actually been planning, I'm sure, to carry out this for a long time. And what you may not know is that jihadists actually have a magazine where they've been planning to use trucks as a weapon for quite a while. Back in 2010, this jihadist magazine, Inspire, suggested step-by-step directions for a truck attack to aid would-be terrorists. What they've outlined actually turned out to be a very similar situation to what happened in Nice, France. One of the things that they said, I'm reading right from the magazine here, is that they wanted to use a truck as a mowing machine, not to mow down grass, but actually to mow down the enemies of Allah. They said you should pick your location and timing carefully. You should go for the most crowded locations. To achieve maximum carnage, you need to pick up as much speed as you can while still retaining good control of your vehicle in order to maximize your inertia and be able to strike as many people as possible in your first run. The ideal place is a location where there are a high number of people, like we had in Bastille Day yesterday, and the least number of vehicles. They say if you can get to pedestrian-only areas, like this man did on the Anglais Promenade in Nice, France, the city centers, that would be fabulous, they say. This is the best. This is, where they're going to have swarms of people. It's fabulous, during certain times. If you have access to firearms, they say, carry those with you so you'll be able to finish off your work. And as we know, this terrorist did shoot at the police. This is an idea that they want to implement in countries like Israel, the U.S., Britain, Australia, Germany, Denmark, Holland, and even France is listed. So we see here that these people have these plans for a long time, and they're willing to put them into action. I'm sure that these people had these ideas for jihad even long before fall 2010 when they published this article in the Jihadist Inspire magazine, which is available online. If you want to search for it yourself, you can see the document yourself. So these liberals and corrupt politicians keep saying that we don't need a Second Amendment, that we need to ban guns. But actually banning guns doesn't do anything when these terrorists are willing to take any means necessary to carry out their attacks. Fox News on July 15th actually did a story about this situation, and they talked about Rep. Louis Gohmert. Let's go to that clip.
An ISIS group just last month issued a propaganda video. And, Louis Gohmert is saying the Democrats are making this about a fight about guns. For ISIS, they're saying use any weapons at hand, however low tech. They're saying in one such video that was online, they said, fill your car with gas. Your neighbor is an infidel. So they're not just saying ISIS and terrorists are saying don't just use guns. Use any low tech, device you can to inflict carnage.
Reporting for INFOWARS.com, I'm Ashley Beckford.
Forget what the globalists driving us all headlong into a hell pit have to say. We are most certainly at war. Shocking rhetoric?
If it's a world war, then you have to mobilize NATO. You have to get all the NATO countries to say, we are going to commit forces, both ground and air, to wipe ISIS off the face of the earth.
We're supporting NATO, and we should at least get something out of it, and getting rid of ISIS and getting rid of this cancer that we're watching all over the world, that certainly would be a good thing.
Western civilization is in a war. We should, frankly, test every person from here who is of a Muslim background, and if they believe in Sharia, they should be deported.
And if you are a believing Muslim, you believe that no man-made law, which is what they consider the Constitution, no man-made law can be above Sharia law.
However, globalists like French President Francois Hollande and U.S. President Barack Obama would have us all behave as sitting ducks, just fodder for the revolving door of repackaged horror, blaming the carnage on lone wolf attacks and controlling the narrative right down to the very language we are allowed to use as we all face certain doom.
Terrorist, because that's the event. Now notice over here,
Muslims are not terrorists.
The Hollande and Merkel, their jizya, their bride price for continuing in power under the new caliphate is to betray their own people, to lie about their own people and to their own people.
Right. So they've had the meetings where they say, you've got to give us cover for our jihad. We want to see you let us do this. Just like a gang member to be initiated has got to go kill an old lady for no reason. This is literally a gang initiation.
Well, this is a gang initiation where the leaders of Europe are lying to their own people, and they know they're lying to their own people. This is their bride price, their jizya tax for becoming safe dhimmis and keeping their power. Now, some of them might just out and out say, I converted long ago, I'm a Muslim, fooled you. Or they might say, as long as I keep my palace and my villa and my estate, I don't really care. But their bride price, their jizya tax, is to sell out their own people.
The narrative has to change, or more innocent people will certainly die. Anthony Frieda writes, perhaps instead of lying after every act of jihad and saying that Islam is a religion of peace and that terrorists are perverting Islam, Obama and his cohorts should tell the truth and express the fact that these horrific acts are sanctioned by Islamic dogma. At least 84 dead in Nice, France, after a Tunisian living in France rented a 19-ton refrigerated truck that he used to kill at least 84 people and critically injure 50 more. 10 of those killed were children. All of this on Bastille Day, the French independence holiday. The irony in this attack is probably lost on most people, because most people can't see from the jihadist perspective. The attack in Nice was an expression of the coming caliphate's own independence.
Bad ideology beats no ideology. Even an evil, bad cult beats secular nothingness and nihilism.
That's right.
The postmodern, nihilistic, all things are the same. There's no good. There's no bad. That means Islam wins, because
don't we need a new crusade? I mean, the crusade's got a dirty name, but we were attacked for 400 years before we went in there and kicked their ass. And I'm sorry, if they want one, and this time we want to attack countries that are moderates, Saudi Arabia and all these other jihad centers. They want to fight. They need to really get one.
Well, the good thing is that we have this constitution, so we have at least a legal trench line to fight in, which is that our constitution is above Sharia law. And anybody who says For example, Hillary Clinton, she wants to pass this thing called UN Resolution 1618, which outlaws blasphemy against Islam. Like Obama said, you know, the future must not belong to those who slander the prophet.
And that's why the internet now won't let you criticize Islam, enemy, because that's blasphemy. Gone is our First Amendment.
Well, that's Sharia. That's submission to Sharia.
And even the true atrocity of the attacks themselves have been scrubbed as not to offend the Muslims, and more importantly, not to push the growing worldwide populist movement over the edge. Paul Joseph Watson writes, there are newly released documents from a parliamentary inquiry into the November 13th ISIS massacre in Paris that claimed the lives of 130 people. The documents discuss reports of how some Bataclan victims had their testicles cut off and stuffed in their mouth, a common atrocity committed by jihadist militants across the Middle East. Other victims were gutted or decapitated, while others had their eyes gouged out as Islamicists filmed the gruesome scenes. How much longer can we endure this jihad by immigration, this attack on free speech by the tech world, this collusion of globalist collapse strategy with our own federal government as a one-sided war ramps up on all of us, regardless of your race, political views, or social standing? How much horror can we endure before we finally wrestle the deceptive narrative back to the foxhole of truth? Make no mistake about it. Treason stinks to high heaven, and we are most certainly at war. John Bound for INFOWARS.com.
Every candidate in the history of the world, Democrat, Republican, when they receive huge amounts of money from Wall Street or the drug companies or the fossil fuel industries, what they always say, not going to impact me. And our question is, if it's not going to impact their decisions, why would Wall Street be spending $15 million? I don't think that you are qualified if you get $15 million from Wall Street through your super PAC. I don't think you are qualified if you have voted for the disastrous war in Iraq. I have come here to make it as clear as possible as to why I am endorsing Hillary Clinton, and I intend to do everything I can to make certain she will be the next president of the United States.
And that was Bernie Sanders in just a brief sampling of the times he has spoken out against Mrs. Clinton, saying that she's unqualified for the job, she's in bed with the big banks. And what does Bernie Sanders do? He backs the candidate who is backed by the big banks. Now, if you do recall, this is the guy who's supposed to be fighting for the rest of us. Bernie isn't a product of politics or privilege or all these other things like these other politicians. No, he's fighting for the little guy, you and me. But it seems now that people are feeling the burn in a completely different way than they did before. And we have this article here by Paul Joseph Watson. These people with Bernie Sanders tattoos must be feeling pretty stupid right about now. As you think about Bernie Sanders, the anti-Wall Street candidate, has betrayed his entire support base by endorsing Hillary Clinton, the ultimate Wall Street insider. All these people who have no regrets, as the guy has on his chest right there. Bernie effing Sanders, of course, the little head tattoo of Bernie. And one in particular is the young lady there who is wearing the hoodie. I want to talk about the comments that she made about Bernie Sanders and why she was feeling the burn earlier this year. And we have the article here, While I'll Never Regret My Bernie Sanders Tattoo. The young lady went on to say, he will go down in history for starting an uprising of Americans, promoting us to stand up and saying enough is enough. Billionaires own our country, political systems, and we want to reclaim our democracy. My tattoo is not only a symbolization of my support for Bernie, but it also serves as a reminder to myself for the years to come. He started something big, a revolution in people's thinking that I am so proud to be a part of. Now, once again, you guys may have heard this when you're growing up by your mom. Well, your mom may have told you not to get a tattoo in general, but they said specifically don't get a tattoo of a team or a band or something that your interest could wane in over time. Of course, the team could change their name, move out of state, or any number of other things. But in a similar way, you have to look at your political candidates like this. And as I talk about Bernie Sanders supporters, when I was 17, 18 years old, I probably would have liked Bernie Sanders too. You know, he's in a weird way, he was somewhat of an exciting guy. He captivated many young people, first-time voters, to go out to the polls and get politically involved. So for that, I can understand that aspect of it. But when you take it to the extreme of getting a tattoo of somebody you don't even know